Hello internet, it is I, TheRoschi. Just running up going bam 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 bam. Translates to dead legacy. I don't care. What about your kid? Where are you, lady?
To the people of Sumeru, who are accustomed to receiving concrete information from the Akasha, the arts are an abstract and intangible concept. What constitutes good art? Is there a way to quantify its value? These questions leave even the academia's most esteemed scholars at a loss. But to Nilou, art is the simplest and purest thing in the world. There is no barrier to entry, and everyone can appreciate its beauty.
Where are we dancing today?
Though Nilou's dancing may appear delicate, there is measured strength behind every step. Nilou integrates swordplay with agile footwork as she waltzes with the water to the aid of her allies. Dancing requires not only grace, but physical endurance as well. That is why Nilou pays particular attention to her dietary intake. When Nilou achieves perfect cooking on dishes with adventure-related effects, she has a certain chance to double the product. Nilou's normal attack can combo up to 3 strikes, dealing physical damage to enemies. When using her charged attack, Nilou consumes a certain amount of stamina to unleash a twirling strike, dealing physical damage. When she uses her elemental skill, Nilou enters the pirouette state, dealing hydro damage to nearby enemies based on her max HP. While in the pirouette state, using Nilou's normal attack or elemental skill triggers her sword dance stance, or whirling step stance, respectively, while damage she deals is converted to hydro damage that cannot be overridden and is treated as elemental skill damage. While the pirouette state is active, Nilou's third stance will end this state and trigger a different effect depending on the stance. If Nilou's final stance is sword dance, she unleashes a luminous illusion that inflicts hydro damage to enemies it hits, while also gaining the lunar prayer effect. While lunar prayer is active, Nilou's normal attack is converted to a sword dance, and her final hit will unleash a luminous illusion. If Nilou's final stance is whirling steps, she unleashes a whirling water wheel that deals AoE hydro damage. Also, a tranquility aura is created that follows your active character and applies the wet status to enemies in range. Nilou cannot perform charged attacks while the pirouette or lunar prayer status is active. Leaving the battlefield will remove the status. After unlocking the talent Court of Dancing Petals, if the party consists exclusively of Dendro and Hydro characters, including at least one of each, the third stance of Nilou's elemental skill, when executed, will confer the Golden Chalice's bounty effect on all nearby characters for a limited time. When a character under the effects of Golden Chalice's bounty is hit by a Dendro attack, the elemental mastery of all nearby characters is increased for a certain time. Additionally, triggering a Bloom reaction will produce a Bountiful Core instead of a Dendro Core. The Bountiful Core's attack is treated as a post-Bloom Dendro Core attack, but it bursts more quickly and has a larger AoE than the Dendro Core. Bountiful Cores cannot trigger Hyper Bloom or Burgeon reactions, and they share the same field limit as Dendro Cores. Nilou's dancing style is the stuff of dreams, captivating her audience's hearts and bolstering their spirits. After unlocking the talent Dreamy Dance of Eons, Bountiful Cores triggered due to Golden Chalice's bounty deal increased damage based on how much of Nilou's max HP exceeds a given value. Bountiful Core damage can only be increased in this manner by up to a certain amount.
This dance is for you!
Nilou's elemental burst begins a dance of faraway dreams and melodic springs that causes a lotus of distant waters to bloom, dealing AoE hydro damage based on Nilou's max HP. Enemies hit by the elemental burst will sustain the lingering Eon effect, which deals hydro damage after a short delay. To To Nilou, there is little difference between battle and dance, since both can be used to resolve one's troubles. Most of Nilou's combat is centered around her elemental skill. She freely dances between her two stances, with sword dance allowing her to continuously inflict hydro damage via lunar prayer, and whirling steps setting the stage for follow-up elemental reactions through the persistent tranquility aura effect. With the right party composition, Nilou's third stance during the performance of her elemental skill grants the Golden Chalice's bounty effect to her teammates. Triggering the bloom reaction while this effect is active spawns special bountiful cores that deal greater damage to enemies. When her elemental energy is full, Nilou can use her elemental burst to begin a dance of faraway dreams, dealing AoE hydro damage and applying the lingering Aeon effect to any enemies hit. The lingering Aeon follows up with a further attack after a short delay, ushering in the curtain call of Nilou's spectacular performance. I must stress that I am a warrior and in no way versed in the disciplines of song and dance. If anyone was expecting to hear my philosophical musings on these topics, I'm sorry to disappoint. But while I am no connoisseur, even I find myself moved once in a while by the sight of an extraordinary performance. Even for the nation of wisdom, citing the pursuit of rationality as a justification for refusing to acknowledge the comfort that an audience can find in the arts is sheer arrogance. When groups clash, or human ideals conflict with the rules of the world around them, disputes of this nature most often arise from the inability to tolerate the existence of that which is different from oneself.
People be different, and people fight about it. That's essentially what Dainsleif is saying right there. I mean, a little more to it than that, but the gist. Nilou seems really cool. I, once again, will say that I think she has one of the best character designs in Genshin Impact that I have seen thus far. And very similar to Kokomi, her animations are also beautiful. Being a dancer, I think it's very accurate with the way how she moves on the battlefield as well, with the sword dancing. It's very cool, very fluid. However, it also appears that this character is very niche, and that the best way to use her is to have that Hydro Dendro team. That's great and also not so great, depending on the characters you want to play with, probably, right? But I guess you could say that a lot about a bunch of characters. And ultimately, I do think it's a good thing that we do have characters like this that work best in certain team comps, because if every character was good in every situation, then no one is really unique, and there would probably just be one meta build that would be considered the best that everyone would use until there's an update or something like that. Anyway, Nilou seems fun. Let me know in the comments if you run Nilou in any of your parties stuff, or if you've ever tried her without other Hydro or Dendro in your team, and how did that work out for you? Hey, we've reached Nahida. This is my child. Let's begin.
Lesser Lord Kusanali is a god unlike any other. As the god of wisdom, she has profound insight into the nature of all things, yet she has never had the opportunity to learn by doing. One may ask, how can a god possess true wisdom in the absence of lived experience? All answers can be found in dreams, and she welcomes fellow truth seekers to dream along with her.
I've been waiting for you for ages.
Over her years of confinement, Lesser Lord Kusanali has grown intensely curious about the world outside. Just through observing from afar, Nahida has learned enough to adapt to any situation. Nahida's normal attack can perform up to 4 strikes that deal dendro damage. Her charged attack consumes a set amount of stamina to deal AoE dendro damage in front of her after a short casting time. Tap Nahida's elemental skill to cast dendral bonds that deal AoE dendro damage. Of the enemies hit, a certain number will be marked with the Seed of Skanda. Hold her elemental skill to enter aiming mode and target enemies within a certain range. Nahida benefits from increased resistance to interruption while in this mode. Aiming mode lasts for a limited duration, and only a limited number of enemies can be selected as targets. Release the skill button to deal dendro damage to all selected enemies and mark them with a Seed of Skanda. Enemies marked with a Seed of Skanda and in range of each other will form a connection. When an enemy marked with a Seed of Skanda triggers an elemental reaction or takes damage from dendro cores, Nahida unleashes Tri-Karma Purification, dealing dendro damage to them and all connected enemies based on Nahida's attack and elemental mastery. Tri-Karma Purification can only be triggered once per set interval. After unlocking the talent Awakening Elucidated, the crit rate and damage of Tri-Karma Purification will be increased based on the amount of Nahida's elemental mastery that exceeds a given value. Tri-Karma Purification's crit rate and damage can only be increased in this manner up to a certain amount. Nahida is always watching, listening, learning about the world around her. Nahida's elemental skill allows her to interact with certain harvestable items when they are in range. In some scenarios, it may also have other uses.
That's cool.
The Temple of Wisdom!
When Nahida unleashes her elemental burst, she materializes the Court of Dreams and brings forth the Shrine of Maya. The shrine provides different effects depending on the elemental types of characters in the party, as follows. If the party contains a pyro character, the damage dealt by Tri-Karma Purification will be increased when Nahida is within the Shrine of Maya's AoE. If the party contains an electro character, the interval between each Tri-Karma Purification is decreased when Nahida is within the Shrine of Maya's AoE. If the party contains a hydro character, the Shrine of Maya's duration will be extended. When the Shrine of Maya is created, if the party contains at least 2 characters of the aforementioned elemental types, their corresponding effects will receive a further boost. So long as the active party member remains within the shrine, the effects described above can be triggered even if Nahida is not on the field. Nahida freely shares her knowledge with anyone who asks, but how much of it they can comprehend depends on their own aptitude. After unlocking the talent Compassion Illuminated, when Nahida casts her elemental burst, the elemental mastery of the active character within the Shrine of Maya will be increased based on the elemental mastery of whichever party members is highest. Elemental mastery can only be increased up to a certain amount in this manner. The God of Wisdom excels both at posing questions and answering them. Combat is no different. The enemy is the conundrum, and her strategy is the solution. In battle, Nahida first targets a group of enemies with her elemental skill, using Seeds of Skanda to connect them to each other. Next, she coordinates with her teammates to trigger elemental reactions, repeatedly unleashing Tri-Karma Purifications as her main mode of attack. She and her team branch out across the battlefield, taking out the weeds as they go. When energy is full, Nahida unleashes her elemental burst, creating the Shrine of Maya to increase all active characters' elemental mastery and provide additional effects depending on the elemental composition of her party. Faced with Nahida's increased dendro damage and the strengthened team around her, all who enter the Temple of Wisdom seeking conflict will soon be reunited with their home turf. Humans often place gods on a pedestal, awestruck by their unfathomable power. Very few ever come to the realization that gods are not the rulers of Teyvat, but merely another form of living being in this world. A god who lacks strength may have little to no advantage, even over mere mortals. Even I have no spiteful words to say about a god such as this. I will leave her be. Perhaps the god of Dendro will continue to propagate herself for as long as Irminsul continues to exist. As for the significance of Irminsul to the whole of Teyvat, I will leave that for those who are not under this world's control to discover for themselves.
You know, I was half expecting for Dainsleif to say something negative about Nahida because he has something to usually say when it comes to gods. But I'm glad he didn't, because how can you? Alright, Dane. Respect for now. The Irminsul thing was interesting, though. I enjoyed hearing that comment that he made. That is making me think of all sorts of things. There's something about Nahida, and maybe it is actually connected to why she is the Archon of wisdom and all that kind of stuff. There's something about her that's a little fourth wall breaking with his final comments about Irminsul and just watching Nahida and the kinds of attacks that she is using. For example, her animations when she's doing her normal attacks, it looks like she's playing hopscotch, which is cool. You know, a little girl playing hopscotch, it's cute, right? Yeah, but what she's hopping on, I don't know, maybe I'm just seeing things, I'll have to look back at it, but they kind of look like buttons or like keys to a keyboard, maybe. And then like the picture thing, highlighting things. You know, that made me think of just like a camera looking at like QR codes, and then there's these swipes, which could be like a mouse swipe or click of something. And just, yeah, something about it. But yeah, I really like Nahida. She might be one of the characters on the top of the list that I might have to actually go for. Might just be.
Dreaming may be an entirely new concept to the majority in Sumeru, but one person's already managed to become famous for it. Recently, the strange tales of the sleepwalking eccentric have been circulating in the academia. Rarely used telescopes quietly moving during the night, entire theses finished between dusk and dawn, and a girl seen in the city one minute spotted all the way over at Caravan Rebot the next. The only one who can't muster the strength to investigate it is Layla herself. Chronic sleep deprivation has taken its toll on her energy levels.
Can't sleep? Let's go for a walk then.
Layla's research primarily focuses on theoretical astrology. After receiving her cryovision, she formed a star-crusted veil with ice and frost, providing a space for her companions to study, rest, and even fight undisturbed. Sometimes, while deep asleep, a friend that Layla never knew she had will secretly come to her aid. When Layla crafts character talent materials, she has a chance to receive double the product, boosting the party's adventure readiness. Layla's normal attack can combo up to 3 strikes, dealing physical damage to enemies. Using her charged attack, Layla consumes a certain amount of stamina and performs 2 swift slashes to her front, dealing physical damage. Casting Layla's elemental skill creates a Curtain of Slumber and also deals AoE cryo damage. The Curtain of Slumber absorbs damage based on Layla's max HP and absorbs cryo damage even more effectively. Layla also becomes affected by cryo for a short time when the Curtain of Slumber is created. At regular intervals while the Curtain of Slumber is active, a Night Star is generated, which adheres to the curtain. Additionally, 2 Night Stars are generated when a character protected by the curtain casts their elemental skill. Night Stars can only be generated in this manner once per set time period, and a maximum of 4 Night Stars may exist at one time. After 4 Night Stars have been accumulated, if there are enemies in range, the Night Stars convert to shooting stars that automatically home in on enemies, dealing cryo damage on hit. No new Night Stars can be generated until all shooting stars have fired. When the Curtain of Slumber expires or is destroyed, any Night Stars present disappear along with it. If they have already converted into shooting stars and started firing, they will remain until all of them have finished firing. After unlocking the talent like Nascent Light, while the Curtain of Slumber is present, gaining a Night Star triggers the Deep Sleep effect. Deep Sleep increases the shield strength of the character under the curtain's protection. It can be stacked up to 4 times and is cleared when the Curtain of Slumber expires. Any disturbance is too much after a night of poor quality sleep. The only solution is to get rid of them completely. After unlocking the talent Sweet Slumber Undisturbed, the shooting stars fired by Layla's elemental skill deal increased damage based on Layla's max HP.
Stars, shine for me.
Layla's elemental burst unleashes a soporific celestial dream sphere that continuously fires starlight slugs at enemies within range, dealing cryo damage. When a starlight slug hits an enemy, a Night Star is also generated on nearby Curtains of Slumber. Each Curtain of Slumber can gain only 1 Night Star in this manner per set time period. Layla knows the pain of sleep deprivation all too keenly and naturally wouldn't wish it on any of her companions. In battle, Layla uses her elemental skill to create a protective Curtain of Slumber for her teammates and starts accumulating Night Stars. A full quota of Night Stars will convert into shooting stars that target nearby enemies and deal cryo damage, supporting the battle effort. When energy is full, Layla unleashes her elemental burst to create a celestial dream sphere, which continuously fires starlight slugs at enemies in range to deal cryo damage, while also increasing the production of Night Stars, helping her teammates to comfortably slide their way to victory. Many people have 2 sides to their personality, but it's not often that the contrast between them is as stark as Layla's. She spends her waking hours crushed by stress over her schoolwork, yet when sleepwalking, her mind is sharp and lucid. She casts aside her unproductive feelings of self-doubt and gets much accomplished. But perhaps she should count her blessings. Finding a goal in life is difficult enough as it is, and having any chance at all to pursue it undisturbed is nigh on impossible. Enjoy life while things are still uncomplicated. Go and do the things you want to do, because once you reach a certain age, things can never go back to being as simple as they once were.
I swear, this character was made to console college students. What this character does, what they're all about, and the message that Dainsleif is saying here. I mean, come on. How can it not be? Enjoy your life while you can, while you're young, because after a certain point in time, things are going to get harder and serious, so you might as well enjoy yourself. And then this character in general is very much, you know, a student. They are a student. Stressed, they have anxiety, but they have all this work and they're still managing to get it done somehow. Oh, do I remember the days of sleep deprivation. I'm speaking as if they're gone. Layla is cool. I like her shield and how the stars build up and they shoot out, and she has her celestial doom star, whatever it was called, which also acts as a turret of sorts. Very nice mix of defensive abilities while continuously doing damage over time. It's very nice. It's cool. I like Layla. I think her design is really cool. However, these claw gloves, what the heck? I didn't notice that before. That's a little scary. These almost look like shackles too. Oh my god. We're all prisoners in this world.
There once was a palace, and in that palace was a puppet, sound asleep. You know, I could just pretend that I don't remember what happened after that, and then make up some boring story and get this over with. But boring clearly isn't my style, nor is it the Wanderer's way of doing things. You could say his story is simple and straightforward, or horrendously complex, and both would be right. It all depends on the storyteller.
Are you sure it has to be me? Fine. Let's get this over with.
If you happen to run into this Wanderer, don't let his menacing expression make you nervous. He's really not all that hard to get along with. You just need to keep your distance, that's all. Don't provoke him, and he won't kick up a storm. Simple, isn't it? He doesn't like to talk about it much, but the Wanderer has quite a lot of experience in forging weapons. So when the Wanderer ascends bows and catalysts, it doesn't cost him as much mora. The Wanderer's normal attack can combo up to 3 wind blades, dealing animo damage. His charged attack consumes some stamina and creates a high-pressure wind blast in front of him after a short casting time, dealing AoE animo damage. The Wanderer's elemental skill harnesses the power of the air all around as he casts off the shackles of gravity, dealing AoE animo damage and rising into the air as he enters the wind-favored state. In this state, the Wanderer is unable to use plunging attacks, and his normal and charged attacks are converted to Kugo Fushodan and Kugo Tofukai, which deal increased damage over a wider AoE. Using Kugo Tofukai will not consume stamina. The Wanderer hovers in midair while in this state, continuously consuming Kugo Ryoku points to remain airborne. When the sprint button is pressed, instead of sprinting, the Wanderer consumes more Kugo Ryoku points to fly through the air more quickly. Holding sprint maintains a faster flying speed while consuming points at a faster rate. Pressing jump raises the Wanderer higher into the air at the cost of Kugo Ryoku points, and holding jump does so continuously. The wind-favored state ends when all Kugo Ryoku points are used up. The wind-favored state allows the Wanderer to do battle from midair, as well as explore difficult terrain more easily. Casting his elemental skill again while airborne brings the wind-favored state to an end. After unlocking the talent Jade Claimed Flower, if the Wanderer's elemental skill makes contact with Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, or Electro when cast, the wind-favored state provides different buffs depending on the element. Hydro increases the Wanderer's Kugo Ryoku point cap. Pyro increases the Wanderer's own attack. Cryo increases his crit rate. And Electro causes him to regain some elemental energy when Kugo Fushodan and Kugo Tofukai deal damage to enemies. A limited quantity of energy can be regained per set time period, and a maximum of 2 buffs can be gained at any one time. The force of wind cannot always be seen, but it can certainly be felt. After unlocking the talent Gales of a Reverie, when Kugo Fushodan or Kugo Tofukai hits an enemy, the Wanderer has a chance to gain the Descent effect. The next time the Wanderer uses his alternate sprint to fly at speed, the Descent effect is consumed instead of Kugo Ryoku points, and several wind arrows are fired, each dealing animo damage. If a Kugo Fushodan or Kugo Tofukai does not trigger the Descent effect, the chance of triggering the effect next time is increased.
Know your place!
Casting the Wanderer's elemental burst compresses the surrounding air to form an animo plenum that blasts all sources of frustration away, dealing multiple bouts of AoE animo damage. Casting his elemental burst while in the wind-favored state brings this state to an end. Though Wanderer is his name, aimlessness is not his game, and he does not hesitate to take decisive action in pursuit of his goals. The Wanderer's elemental skill is his preferred means of doing battle. Once in the wind-favored state, he attacks from the air using his Kugo Fushodan and Kugo Tofukai to deal increased animo damage with a wider AoE. By coordinating with his teammates, he can benefit from a range of enhancements, which make him even more powerful in battle. When energy is full, the Wanderer unleashes his elemental burst, dealing several rounds of AoE animo damage in one fell swoop, devastating all obstacles that stand in his way. The world of Teyvat has its own rules. They aren't perfect, though, and in some cases they are as delicate and fragile as the human heart. That's why I've been tasked with the job I have now, a job which gives me certain special privileges. I'm someone who likes having the freedom to live their own life, but I don't mind this job. It gives me the chance to see this world and every everything that lives in it from a lot of different perspectives. People can find ways to forget, but they can't undo what they've done, and there's no escaping the past. The Wanderer learned this the hard way. But what about his future? Which way will the wind blow? A lot of people crave the power to predict the future, but I doubt the Wanderer cares for that. With a past like his, he knows the only way is forward, whatever lies ahead, for better or for worse.
Any way the wind blows. I see what you did there. Which also makes sense because Wanderer's just based off of Bohemian Rhapsody and, you know, Thunderbolts and Lightning, and he was an Electro Vision user before when he was Scaramouche, and then when he changes into Wanderer, Any Way the Wind Blows, which is the last line of the song connected to his change now, and that he goes with the wind, he's Anemo. Yeah, okay, great. Once again, I never expect Alice to show up when she does, but then after she starts speaking, I can see why. Wanderer is an odd case with how he came into being in general, and I think that's something that Alice would be interested in and started to share that with us in the form of a fairy tale, and then broke off and started talking about him this way. Still don't know how I feel about Alice. She's all about that freedom and stuff, and talking about how she can live and see from all sorts of other different perspectives. But how about the perspective of being a mom? How about that one, Alice? You ever think of that perspective? Anyway, I'm sorry. Maybe it's fine. It is super interesting whenever Alice does speak on these things, though. You can tell that she's a very peculiar mind, as Dainsleif is as well. But we've heard a lot more of him than her. It is cool that she does pop in every once in a while. Using Wanderer looks like easy mode. The ability to fly, I don't know how a lot of those enemies are supposed to even begin to try to hit you if you're flying up over their heads. I don't know if they've got animations for those enemies to like jump in the air and try to swing at you or anything like that. It doesn't look like it, but that's just based off of this. One last thing I'll say about this that I liked is that Wanderer's attack animations, when he's up in the air and you see all those slashes hitting the enemies, a little reminiscent of Raiden Shogun's slashes from when she does the thing. I forget the names of the moves. There's no way I'm going to remember all these names. But yeah, I mean, hers are purple, his are the cyan Anemo color. Nice little touch there. I like that, and it makes sense.
In the Academia's early years, researching ancient mechanisms meant deciphering numerous documents. So even though Faruzan is a Haravatat scholar, her mastery of runes led her to become one of the pioneer scholars in the field of ancient mechanics. But as the academic world progressed over the course of a century, Faruzan's dedication to this field was buried beneath the sands of time, just like her unusual fate.
Sure, I'll hang out with you youngsters.
Although she may look young, Faruzan is an experienced Haravatat scholar and mentor with a robust research background. Her control over the power of Anemo grants many new potential uses to her ancient trinkets. Researching mechanisms and solving puzzles is a hands-on process, and one which has taken Faruzan all across Sumeru. Faruzan gains increased rewards when dispatched on a 20-hour expedition within Sumeru. Faruzan's normal attack can combo up to 4 consecutive shots, dealing physical damage. With a charged attack, Faruzan executes a more precise aimed shot that deals increased damage. While aiming, mighty winds accumulate on the arrowhead, and a fully charged arrow will deal Anemo damage. Casting Faruzan's elemental skill deploys a polyhedron device, dealing AoE animo damage and causing her to enter the Manifest Gale state. In this state, Faruzan's next fully charged shot will consume the Manifest Gale and turn into a hurricane arrow. This arrow deals animo damage based on the damage of her fully charged normal attack, Parthian Shot. The hurricane arrow will apply a pressurized collapse effect to the enemy or character hit. This effect will be removed after a short delay, creating a vortex that deals AoE animo damage and pulls in nearby objects and enemies. If the arrow does not hit any enemy or character, it will create a pressurized collapse effect at its point of impact. The vortex damage is considered elemental skill damage.
Truth repeats its course.
Unleashing her elemental burst, Faruzan deploys a dazzling polyhedron that releases a whirlwind pulse and deals AoE animo damage. While the dazzling polyhedron persists, it will continuously move along a triangular path. Whenever it reaches a corner of that triangular path, it unleashes a whirlwind pulse. The whirlwind pulse will apply Prayerful Wind's benefit to all nearby party members, granting them an animo damage bonus. When the pulse hits an enemy, it will apply Perfidious Wind's Bale to them, decreasing their animo resistance. After unlocking the talent Impetuous Flow, when Faruzan is in the Manifest Gale state created by her elemental skill, the charging time of her aimed shot is decreased, and she can apply the Perfidious Wind's Bale effect to enemies hit by the vortex created by pressurized collapse. As a veteran of academia, Faruzan never hesitates to impart her wisdom to the future generations. After unlocking the talent Lost Wisdom of the Seven Caverns, when characters affected by Prayerful Wind's benefit deal animo damage to enemies with a normal, charged, or plunging attack, or an elemental skill or burst, they gain the Hurricane Guard effect, increasing the damage dealt by a certain percentage of Faruzan's base attack. Hurricane Guard can be triggered only once within a set duration, and the effect is cleared after animo damage is dealt. Faruzan is unfazed by the fact that her field of research is now considered outdated. On the contrary, it has inspired new grit and determination. Faruzan starts battle by casting her elemental skill and quickly firing a hurricane arrow to deal animo damage to the enemy. The arrow's pressurized collapse effect then pulls in nearby enemies, providing support to her teammates. When energy is full, Faruzan unleashes her elemental burst to deploy a dazzling polyhedron. This device moves over the battlefield, creating whirlwind pulses and decreasing enemies' animo resistance, which effectively increases the team's animo damage. Make the most of Faruzan's carefully researched dazzling polyhedron, and the rest of the battle will be a breeze. Time is a relative concept and is perceived differently by different people. 100 years is the longest life most people could imagine. Small wonder that they are fascinated by the idea of someone disappearing for this long, only to return looking not a day older than when they left. To Faruzan, those 100 years were physically exhausting and mentally taxing, yet she balks at the idea of seeking sympathy or being the topic of other people's conversations. Only convincing the academia's new enrollees to address her as Madam gives her experience some meaning. But if you ask me, age isn't much of a qualification. After all, time never really stops flowing. And although ancient wisdom should be respected, how long would it really take to erase it all?
How long would it take to erase it all? I don't know, Dainsleif, why are you asking? Huh? Dainsleif does pose an interesting question here, though. This line specifically reminds me of what he said when talking about Yaoyao and how she works with making the fiction novels, and one day, if the future civilizations were to uncover those books, and that history itself could be mistaken for some fiction that was written does something like that possibly just erase history itself? And in that sense, if you believe that and not something from a non-fiction source, then technically history has been erased. I mean, there's always a history, but as far as records of it, so people know about the history, yeah, it's true. It can simply be forgotten if it's not discovered or mistaken for something else. And if it's never discovered, or if it is mistaken, then would you consider it erased? Like if a tree falls in a woods and nobody's there to hear it, does it make a sound? Scientifically, yes, of course it makes a sound, or vibration at the very least, but if no one is within the vicinity to discover or be around said tree, then you don't know. Now, if Dane's going on about actively trying to erase history, then I don't know what he's on about that, and it's just kind of sketch. But anyway, Faruzan, I like her, and we could be best friends. As far as her stuff goes, I like her charge shot. I like how she can pull the enemies together. I like her decohedron that zips around doing the area effect thing. Cool stuff. I don't think we've seen something as of yet that moves around in that way, dealing damage within a vicinity. Another unique character, and I'm all about it.
Scribe Alhaitham can be the easiest person in the academia to communicate with, or the most frustrating. He ignores the irrelevant and filters out the fluff, focusing solely on the logical steps and appropriate process for the task ahead. For his more pragmatic colleagues, this makes him a joy to work with, though not everyone shares their enthusiasm.
Let's get down to business.
Most scholars would jump at the opportunity to use a vision to further their research, and I thought Alhaitham would be no exception. Yet to my surprise, he prefers to use his elemental powers not for research, but to deal with other issues that arise in life. Thinking a step ahead of everyone else is bound to reap benefits. When Alhaitham crafts weapon ascension materials, he has a chance to receive double the product, boosting the party's adventure readiness. Alhaitham's normal attack can combo up to 5 strikes with his sword, dealing physical damage. Using his charged attack, Alhaitham consumes a certain amount of stamina and performs 2 swift slashes to his front, dealing physical damage. Tap Alhaitham's elemental skill to rush forward, dealing dendro damage to nearby enemies when the rush ends, as well as creating a chisel-like mirror. Holding the skill enters aiming mode to adjust the direction of the attack. When this skill is cast, Alhaitham generates 1 chisel-like mirror, plus 1 additional mirror if he possessed no mirrors at the time of casting. Up to 3 chisel-like mirrors can exist at one time. While he possesses chisel-light mirrors, Alhaitham's normal, charged, and plunging attacks will be converted to dendro damage that cannot be overridden. When one of these attacks hits an enemy, the chisel-light mirrors unleash a projection attack that deals AoE dendro damage based on the number of mirrors on the field. Chisel-light mirrors will disappear in turn over time, and will all disappear when Alhaitham leaves the field. After unlocking the talent For Causal Correction, when Alhaitham's charged and plunging attacks hit enemies, they will generate 1 chisel-light mirror. This effect can only occur once in a specified period.
A process of elimination.
Alhaitham's elemental burst creates a particular binding field that deals multiple instances of AoE dendro damage. If any chisel-light mirrors exist when this ability is used, they are all consumed to increase the number of damage instances dealt. Shortly after this ability has finished, if no mirrors were consumed, then Alhaitham will generate 3 new mirrors. For every mirror that was consumed by this skill, Alhaitham will generate 1 less new mirror accordingly. When surrounded by mirrors, it takes a perceptive eye to distinguish reality from reflection. After unlocking the talent Mysteries Laid Bare, each point of elemental mastery that Alhaitham possesses increases the damage dealt by his projection attacks and elemental bursts, Damage can only be increased in this way, up to a certain limit. To Alhaitham, remaining rational under pressure is the key to solving difficult problems. Luckily for him, this is an ability that few of his foes possess. Alhaitham's combat strategy is centered around the efficient use of his chisel light mirrors. His elemental skill allows him to quickly traverse the battlefield, while dealing dendro damage to enemies and generating chisel light mirrors. Then Alhaitham can use these mirrors and their projection attacks to easily gain the upper hand. When energy is full, Alhaitham unleashes his elemental burst, creating the particular binding field and dealing several bouts of AoE dendro damage. If he possesses no chisel light mirrors at this time, some are generated after he has used his burst, allowing him to follow up with more attacks. If he already has mirrors when he casts his burst, then he is able to deal more dendro damage and swiftly seize victory. A comfortable life looks much the same for everyone, but the people who lead those lives may be nothing alike at all. A sharp mind and a good attitude have benefited Alhaitham immensely in his pursuit of the good life. It is not my place to judge how other people live. If anything, the more I say, the more jealous I would sound. The truth is, I have nothing against a laid-back lifestyle. It reminds me of a simpler time. But unfortunately, not all creatures are capable of being rational and logical in everything they do. Alhaitham's approach only works in the context of his relatively simple existence, and that is completely fine by him.
At the end there, Dane was talking about remembering a simpler time, but I'm pretty sure in another video, I can't remember which one, he talked about simpler times or something and how he can't remember them. So I don't know what that's about, unless if there was a simpler time after things went to shit, in his opinion. Not really sure. Alhaitham is super cool, and just like Dane, I too am jealous of him. I'm also kind of ridiculous because I did not realize he had a dendro vision. For some reason, this whole time, I thought he was Animo. And, I mean, with everything being green, that makes sense that it's Dendro. I don't know why I thought he was Animo. I like that he can zip around and do the slash, and with the other slash, and he's slashing, and it's cool. His animations are super cool as well. There's a moment where he does where he kicks his sword to have it spin and hit the enemy that way, and I dig it. As far as Dendro characters go, he's up there pretty high on the list. I mean, Nahida, easily, probably number one, but this guy's got the cool factor. So, I mean, do you want to go with Protect, or do you want to go with Cool Guy? He's got the Cool Guy category on lock.
Yaoyao is the youngest of Streetward Rambler's disciples. Liyue's Adepti are a strange group. You'll never see most of them setting foot anywhere near the city, and yet the instant they find a human whom they take a liking to, they'll come flocking in, teaching Adeptus arts one day and lavishing them with gifts the next. One of these favored few is Yaoyao, a young and enthusiastic disciple who is thriving under their care.
I'll take good care of everyone.
Yaoyao's young age posed no obstacle to her making contact with the Adepti. In fact, they were thoroughly won over by the young child's inquisitive nature. One Adeptus in particular was especially delighted when she saw how Yaoyao used an Adeptus contraption, Yuegui, in conjunction with the power of her dendrovision. Even though the sound of bells follows Yaoyao wherever she goes, the wildlife is never disturbed by her presence. When Yaoyao is in the party, your characters will not startle crystal flies, lizards, and certain other animals when approaching them. Yaoyao's normal attack can combo up to 4 strikes with her polearm, dealing physical damage. Using her charged attack, Yaoyao consumes a certain amount of stamina to lunge forward, dealing physical damage to enemies along the way. Tapping her elemental skill summons the Adeptus contraption Yuegui Throwing Mode to assist Yaoyao in combat. Hold the skill to enter aiming mode and control Yaoyao's throwing direction. Yuegui Throwing Mode throws out white jade radishes that will explode upon hitting characters or enemies, dealing dendro damage to enemies within a certain AoE, and healing characters within that same AoE based on Yaoyao's max HP. If a radish does not hit either an enemy or a character, it will remain where it landed and explode on contact with a character or enemy, or after its duration expires. Yuegui Throwing Mode will select the target for the White Jade Radish depending on the surrounding combat situation. If nearby characters have relatively high HP, it will target an enemy. If there are any nearby characters whose HP has dropped below a certain percentage, it will target the character with the lowest HP percentage. And if no enemies are nearby, it will target a character even if their HP is relatively high. A maximum of 2 instances of Yuegui Throwing Mode can exist at any one time. After unlocking the talent In Others' Shoes, when a White Jade Radish explodes, active characters within its AoE will regain HP at set intervals, based on Yaoyao's max HP. This effect lasts for a limited duration.
Go get him, Yuegui!
Per the instructions of a certain Adeptus, Yaoyao casts her elemental burst in emergencies to unleash Yuegui's full potential, dealing dendro damage to nearby enemies and entering the Adepta Legacy state. In this state, the White Jade Radish's healing and damage effects are modified to their elemental burst variants. Exploding radishes now heal all nearby party members, and the dendro damage that they deal is treated as elemental burst damage. Yaoyao's movement speed and dendro resistance are increased while in the Adepta Legacy state. Also, Yaoyao will summon Yuegui Jumping Mode at intervals until the maximum of 3 instances has been reached. Jumping Mode Yuegui behaves in the same way as the Throwing Mode Yuegui produced by Yaoyao's elemental skill. The Adepta Legacy state will end when Yaoyao leaves the field, and all instances of Yuegui Jumping Mode will be cleared when the state ends. In the eyes of a child, stars shining in the night may seem like little white fruits scattered across the sky. After unlocking the talent Star Scatter, when Yaoyao is running, sprinting, or jumping in the Adepta Legacy state, she will constantly throw white jade radishes at nearby enemies. Only 1 white jade radish can be produced in this way within a set duration. Radishes may not be a miracle cure, but they are always a healthy option. Well, I'm no expert, but Yaoyao will assure you that this is the case. In battle, Yuegui is Yaoyao's trusty helper, providing flexible support to the team depending on the situation. Yaoyao's elemental skill summons Yuegui Throwing Mode to heal her teammates or assist them on the offensive as necessary. When energy is full, Yaoyao unleashes Yuegui's full potential, dealing dendro damage to enemies and entering the Adepta Legacy state. In this state, Yaoyao summons Yuegui Jumping Mode, generating more white jade radishes to help get her teammates out of a tight spot. I am a self-confessed pessimist and refuse to believe that all children have hearts of gold. But Yaoyao certainly turned out well. Pure, innocent, and compassionate, she never fails to extend a helping hand to anyone in need. Fortunately for her, helping those around her is well within her abilities. She hasn't experienced many setbacks in her life so far, and given her positive attitude and the care and support from her Adepti guardians, it is unlikely that any setback could ever pull her down. Humans may have their weaknesses, but that doesn't mean that they are easily broken.
I want a Yuegui in real life, and I want it to throw radishes at people and make them feel better or hurt them, depending on my mood. Yeah, so Yaoyao's just super cute and wholesome all around, to the point where Dane is even like, look man, I I'm all about that realism, that pessimism. Reality is just a bitch. And that, you know, children are evil, except for Yaoyao. She's the exception. And I agree. Yeah, Yaoyao's cool. I see her play style to be pretty fun. It's similar but different enough to Klee. Well, I mean, Klee is just a terrorist. And Yaoyao just has a special living toy friend that she utilizes to help and or punish. Where Klee is like chaos, Yaoyao is like wholesome chaos. And those are my initial thoughts on that.
Anyone who wanders the world will tell you that there's nothing like a dependable travel companion to make the journey easier and safer. Especially if it's someone like Dehya, a mercenary from Sumeru. Though she may see herself as just one among many, she is no ordinary mercenary. Her sharp mind, bravery, and honesty are rare qualities that truly make her a rose among thorns.
Got a job for me?
Raised among mercenaries, Dehya has a wealth of experience under her belt and outstanding combat capabilities. She effortlessly combines swordsmanship, hand-to-hand combat, and the power of her pyrovision in battle, as she skillfully completes an eclectic range of jobs while keeping her client protected. By choosing the right moment to act, risks can be avoided and tasks completed more efficiently. Placing Dehya in your party increases the movement speed of your own party members between the daytime hours of 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. This talent does not take effect in domains, trounce domains, or the Spiral Abyss. Dehya's normal attack uses both her claymore and her fists to combo up to 4 strikes that deal physical damage to enemies. Using her charged attack, Dehya drains stamina over time to perform continuous rapid slashes, finishing with an especially powerful slash. Dehya's elemental skill has different effects depending on the present combat situation. When there is no fiery sanctum field created by Dehya herself currently present in combat, her elemental skill will cast Indomitable Flame, dealing AoE pyro damage and creating a fiery sanctum field. If a fiery sanctum field created by Dehya is currently present in combat, her elemental skill will unleash Ranging Flame, which performs a leaping attack that deals AoE pyro damage before recreating the fiery sanctum field at her new position. A field created in this way will inherit the remaining duration of the previous field. Ranging Flame can be used only once within a single fiery sanctum field's duration. When an enemy within a fiery sanctum field takes damage, the field will unleash a coordinated attack, dealing AoE pyro damage to them based on Dehya's attack and max HP. This effect can be triggered once per set time period. Active characters within the fiery sanctum field gain increased resistance to interruption. When characters in the field take damage, a portion of that damage will be redirected into Redmane's blood. Dehya will then take this damage after a time. When the redirected damage stored by Redmane's blood reaches or exceeds a certain percentage of Dehya's max HP, no further damage will be redirected. Only one fiery sanctum, created by Dehya herself, can exist at a time. After unlocking the talent Stalwart and True, when her HP falls below a certain amount, Dehya recovers a percentage of her max HP, then continues to recover a portion of max HP at regular intervals for a set duration. This effect can be triggered once per set time period.
You're dead meat!
When Dehya casts her elemental burst, she unleashes her burning rage, casts her unwieldy blade aside, and enters the blazing lioness state, increasing her resistance to interruption. In this state, Dehya automatically unleashes a series of Flame Mane's fists, dealing pyro damage. When the duration ends, she executes an incineration drive, dealing AoE pyro damage. All damage dealt by Flame Mane's fists and incineration drive is based on Dehya's attack and max HP. Also, while in this state, Dehya will be unable to use her elemental skill or perform normal, charged, or plunging attacks. Her normal attack and elemental skill will be replaced by Roaring Barrage. Using Roaring Barrage shortly after each Flame Main's Fist will increase the attack speed of the next Flame Main's Fist. If a Fiery Sanctum field created by Dehya's own elemental skill exists when she unleashes her elemental burst, Dehya will retrieve it, then recreate the field once Blazing Lioness's duration expires. The recreated field will inherit the remaining duration of the retrieved field. After unlocking the talent Unstinting Succor, for a short period after Dehya retrieves a Fiery Sanctum field using Molten Inferno Ranging Flame or Leonine Bite, she will take decreased damage when absorbing damage from Redmane's blood. This effect can be triggered once per set time period. Additionally, for a short period after Dehya unleashes Molten Inferno Indomitable Flame, she will grant all party members the Gold Forged Form state. This state will further increase characters' resistance to interruption when they are within a Fiery Sanctum field. This state can be triggered once per set time period. Although her reputation as the Flame Main has spread far and wide, Dehya has never aspired to fame. Rather, her focus is on consistently completing each job entrusted to her and on protecting those around her. Dehya's combat strategy is centered around her elemental skill. She starts by using it to create a Fiery Sanctum, which assists teammates in combat by redirecting damage away from them and providing coordinated attacks. At an opportune moment, she uses Ranging Flame to deal another bout of AoE pyro damage to enemies. When energy is full, Dehya unleashes her elemental burst and enters the Blazing Lioness state. In this state, she uses Roaring Barrage to increase the attack speed of Flame Main's Fist, before finishing with an Incineration Drive, overpowering her foes with her Flaming Lioness Claws. Collecting payments and completing commissions is a mercenary's bread and butter, but the commissions undertaken by mercenaries differ from those handled by adventurers. Mercenary commissions are more commercial in nature, and the tasks involved are more varied. Many criminals, heroes, and other larger-than-life figures emerge from this trade as the euphoria of strength and success goes to their heads. But not so with Dehya, who knows that delusions of grandeur only make surviving in the treacherous mercenary world all the more difficult. As someone who began life in the desert, Dehya has been confronted with issues of belief and forced to make difficult decisions on many occasions. She may wear a stern gaze, but she treats others with fairness and generosity. I would even say that she, of all mercenaries, is a pioneer of living a genuine life, attuned to the realities of the world around her.
Dehya's a real cool character, and it's unfortunate that I've heard a lot of people say that she's not so good now. I think she got nerfed or something, if I'm remembering that correctly. And if that is the case, that is super unfortunate because she looks like a lot of fun to play as. Because of that, part of me makes me want to hopefully one day pull for Dehya and to somehow build a decent one. Although I'm not great when it comes to that kind of micromanaging and stuff, but maybe I'd look into it. Maybe that's just foolish. One thing I really like though is that field that she puts out, and then while you're within the field, you don't stagger as much. I think I've already talked about it in another recording session, that staggering in games and being interrupted while trying to do attacks is one of the most annoying things ever. And I totally get it, why it's a thing, why it's there. You got to be smart about your placement and your timing and how you're doing stuff. But it's really cool when there are abilities and such that help you when it comes to that, so you don't have to worry about that as much. I think it's pretty cool, and it fits with her character too, you know, just being all tough, being able to take a hit and to keep going and to punch her way through situations. As I was guessing after watching some of these, she's not so much as Yaoyao, where Yaoyao is more martial arts all around, and that she is more closely connected to Sino as far as gameplay wise. where she uses a weapon, like he uses a polearm, she uses a claymore, and then when they do their specials, they switch into the more brawly mode to unleash those attacks. It's cool either way. I like how they portray her as this rough and tumble character with a kind heart. After watching her teaser, I'm a Dehya supporter, 100%. And even Dainsleif here says how she is a pioneer of being a genuine person, at least as far as mercenaries go, and that she's well in tune with the realities around her. Are these realities really real, though, is a whole nother question, but as far as the world that Dehya can see, Dainsleif is like, she gets it. With what she is capable of understanding in her current situation, she gets it and lives a good life the way she wants to. Alright, so this next character is Mika, and in my past videos, I've expressed how I'm not a huge fan of Mika, mostly because of his voice. Now, this is no disrespect to the people within Genshin or the voice actor that they chose for him, but in my personal opinion, it sounds like an older guy trying to make a kid voice. There were some scenes I've seen Mika in some of the teasers and stuff where his voice sounded okay at best, in my opinion. However, one thing that I'll give to Mika's credit is that the way Mika does combat seems interesting. We've seen Mika with a crossbow, we've seen Mika with a polearm, we've also seen Mika with a book. So it looks like Mika does have the potential to be an interesting character to play with, at least when it comes to gameplay. So I'm looking forward to seeing how they break down Mika in this video. So let's get into it.
It was good news for the Knights of Favonius when frontline surveyor Mika returned from the expedition. Not only did he come bearing news of his team's well-being, but his presence brings everyone a general sense of security. After all, it's always good to have an efficient mapmaker on hand, just in case a certain someone blows another mountaintop or ancient ruin into oblivion.
All right, everything's ready.
As the reconnaissance company's frontline surveyor, Mika's primary duties are pathfinding and surveying, and he also has a hand in logistics. A keen observer and a cautious operator, Mika keeps one eye on the enemy's weak points and the other on his teammates' health during battle. By marking useful resources on a map, a platoon can be ready to resupply at any time. When Mika is in the party, the location of items unique to Mondstadt will appear on your minimap, making it easier to gather resources. Mika's normal attack can combo up to 5 strikes, alternating between the crossbow and polearm, dealing physical damage. Using his charged attack, Mika consumes a certain amount of stamina to lunge forward, dealing physical damage to enemies along the way. Tap Mika's elemental skill to fire a Flow Frost arrow, which pierces through opponents and deals cryo damage to enemies it hits. Hold the elemental skill button and Mika takes aim at an enemy, then fires a Rhyme Star Flare at them, dealing cryo damage. After impact, the Rhyme Star Flare will rise, explode, then fire Rhyme Star shards at a maximum of 3 other enemies, dealing cryo damage. Additionally, Mika's elemental skill grants the Soul Wind status to nearby party members. Active party members with the Soul Wind status benefit from increased attack speed.
Let's keep going, team.
Mika's elemental burst draws courage from the Knights of Favonius' prayers to spur on his teammates, restoring health to all nearby party members based on his max HP, and granting them the Eagle Plume status. When an active character with the Eagle Plume status strikes an enemy with a normal attack, Mika heals them by an amount based on his max HP. Characters can only be healed in this manner once per set time period. Having a clear lay of the land, confers a huge advantage for comrades in battle. After unlocking the talent Suppressive Barrage, the Soul Wind status from Mika's elemental skill has a chance to grant the Detector buff, which increases physical damage dealt by the active character. When Mika's Flow Frost arrow hits more than one enemy, 1 stack of detection is gained per additional enemy hit. A detection stack is also gained when a Rhyme Star shard hits an enemy. Only 1 stack can be gained per shard. Soul Wind's Detector buff has a maximum of 3 stacks. If Mika's elemental skill is used again while Soul Wind and Detector are still active, these effects are cleared. After unlocking the talent Topographical Mapping, an active character under the effects of both the Eagle Plume and Soul Wind statuses will gain 1 stack of Detector upon landing a crit hit on an enemy. Only 1 Detector stack can be gained in this way during a single instance of Soul Wind. Additionally, the maximum number of Soul Wind's detection stacks is increased by 1. Mika's near-constant experience in live combat has molded him into someone his team can depend on. In battle, Mika uses his elemental skill to unleash either a Flow Frost arrow or Rhyme Star flare, dealing cryo damage to enemies and providing the Soul Wind status to teammates. Once active, Soul Wind's Detector buff helps his teammates to rise to the challenges of the battlefield. When energy is full, Mika unleashes his Elemental Burst to provide an extra level of support to all his nearby teammates, restoring their HP while also granting them the Eagle Plume status. By healing his teammates via Eagle Plume as they dish out their normal attacks, Mika ensures that they complete their mission and are patched up and ready for the next. To stay on course, one must have a clear view of the way ahead. This may sound trivial, yet how many walk blindly down their paths? Mika may not excel at speaking, but nothing escapes his sights. As he matures and grows in resolve, he will develop great potential to lead others. Still, despite his remarkable talent, Mika could find his ability to command the respect of others undermined by his lack of self-confidence. But who knows what the future will bring? Maybe there really will come a day when Mika finally musters the courage to refuse the menial tasks that Varka habitually foists off onto him.
Even Dainsleif said that the kid is great until he speaks. And it's true. I think Mika looks like a really fun, interesting character, and I would honestly love to have him within my party. But I think I might go insane if I had to hear his voice constantly. Other than that, though, he's very diverse. His abilities are really interesting. He's kind of like a jack of all trades. Pretty cool. He looks like a lot of fun. But another thing in this, was Dainsleif kind of throwing shade at somebody? Mentioned something about blowing up a mountain? I feel like that has something to do with Alice, or maybe even Klee, or both. That family in general. Because I think I've heard that Alice does crazy stuff, and it seems like she does anyway. She's constantly experimenting and whatnot. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if she was responsible for that. Damn. Alright, so that was Mika.
Hey there, I couldn't help but notice that you haven't subscribed yet. What's up with that? It's kinda embarrassing. Don't worry, it looks like this. I hope you can find it. Thanks, I appreciate it.
It's said that chronic illness makes a medical expert out of the patient. This would seem to ring true for Baizhu, a skilled doctor of weak constitution. But delve a little deeper and one is left questioning the true relationship between Dr. Baizhu's ailments and expertise.
Time for a house call.
To heal the sick is a doctor's lifelong calling. Baizhu constantly monitors the well-being of those around him, treating ailments when the earliest symptoms arise. His dendro vision enables him to protect his teammates and provide a range of treatments to suit any scenario. Baizhu's familiarity with the medicinal effects of common herbs is useful knowledge during medical emergencies in the wild. When Baizhu is in the party, interacting with certain harvestable items will heal the active character, meaning more time spent adventuring and less spent recovering.
That's new.
Baizhu's normal attack can perform up to 4 frontal strikes that deal dendro damage. His charged attack consumes a set amount of stamina to deal AoE dendro damage in front of him after a short casting time. Upon casting his elemental skill, Baizhu sends a gossamer sprite to cruise and attack nearby enemies, dealing dendro damage. After it performs a certain number of attacks, or if there are no enemies nearby, the sprite will return. Upon its return, the sprite heals all nearby party members based on Baizhu's max HP. After unlocking the talent 5 Fortunes Forever, Baizhu's abilities are enhanced in different ways depending on the active character's current HP. If their HP is less than a certain percentage, Baizhu's healing bonus is increased. If their HP is equal to or more than a certain percentage, Baizhu's dendro damage bonus is increased.
Taking a turn for the better.
When Baizhu casts his elemental burst, he enters the pulsing clarity state, creating a seamless shield that absorbs dendro damage with increased effectiveness. While the pulsing clarity state is active, a new seamless shield is generated at regular intervals. While a character is under the protection of seamless shield, whenever the shield regenerates, expires, or is destroyed, the active character is healed based on Baizhu's max HP. At the same time, spirit veins are unleashed, which attack enemies, dealing dendro damage. Medicine is a vast and complex discipline whose methods range from the strictly therapeutic to the thoroughly transformative. After unlocking the talent All Things Are of the Earth, when a character is healed by Baizhu's Seamless Shield, they will gain the Year of Verdant Favor effect, which increases damage dealt by burning, bloom, hyperbloom, burgeon, spread, and aggravate reactions triggered by that character. The size of the damage boost depends on the elemental reaction, and scales off of Baizhu's max HP up to a certain limit. This effect lasts for a limited duration. Baizhu avoids life and death battles like the plague and does his utmost to stop comrades from becoming casualties. In battle, Baizhu casts his elemental skill, sending out a gossamer sprite to deal dendro damage to enemies and heal all nearby party members upon its return. When energy is full, Baizhu enters the pulsing clarity state by providing protection and healing for his teammates with his seamless shield, and also unleashing spirit veins to deal dendro damage to enemies. Baizhu gives his team healthy odds of finishing the battle in one piece. Humans typically live short lives. People chase after immortality for countless reasons, most of them selfish in nature. But Baizhu defies the norm. I know of no one else who yearns for eternal life as a means to endure limitless suffering. Perhaps this stubborn defiance is necessary to practice medicine. What doctor can expect to bring patients back from the brink who does not cling to the hope of life despite impossible odds? However sheer his determination, the future is always uncertain. But surely anyone bold enough to shoulder responsibility for the lives and deaths of others deserves reverence and respect.
Yes, so when I originally saw Baizhu and his demo, I was kind of skeptical about what he was all about and what he was doing. I was more so predicting him to go more along the lines of what Dainsleif mentioned, that happens when most people seem to seek out immortality, right? That there's usually selfish reasons behind it. Turns out it's not the case with Baizhu, and that he really just wants to help people. But yeah, I liked his moves. I liked his abilities. I think they're very cool, and how, I mean, the best thing about it, I mean, I know of course like there's a shield thing and like that's awesome, right? That's probably super helpful. But I love the little sprite. I feel like that's a new little thing. Maybe it's not new, but I don't know. It's a little twist on some stuff. Like we've seen some like little like homing missiles and shots, but there's a little thing that you just shoot out there and just rolls around and jumps from enemy to enemy, doing all sorts of little damage and stuff, and that's cool. I like that. I think that's neat. And then when it returns, it does the healing. They're doing a decent job at keeping these newer characters from mimicking previous ones too much, and if they are, they're twisting them in a way where they seem original enough where you can get a different experience out of it. So that's pretty cool. And before I forget, because after every single one of these, I keep meaning to ask a question and I keep forgetting. And that is, some characters, actually every character they all have passive abilities. There are some characters that will decrease the amount of stamina used while climbing or running. My question is, can those abilities stack within your party? So for example, if you have one character that can decrease the amount of stamina spent while sprinting, can you have another character in your party that has the same ability, and will that decrease the amount of stamina spent even more? Because if that stacks, you could make a party that's just for navigation, just for moving around the world. That would be so sick. If I was able to, I'd probably consider doing that anyway in some respects, where I would have someone there for sprinting, someone there for climbing, someone there for gliding, you know, just to make the stamina usage deplete less. Because when I played Breath of the Wild, for example, they have a stamina system as well. And as far as I know, Genshin Impact seems very similar to that mechanic-wise when it comes to things like that, when climbing, sprinting. And for me personally, that was kind of a huge turnoff. I'm not a huge fan of stamina. I know why it's there, and I'm not saying to remove it, but I really like how you have these characters with passives that help with that exploration. And I think that's cool and adds a little bit of strategy to your gameplay. So if you could stack those abilities, that would be amazing. You, who are more experienced than me, please let me know in the comments below if that is possible. Even if it's not, I mean, I'm still going to be playing this game, so whatever. But, I mean, that would be so cool if it works that way. Alright, and now we have Kaveh's collected Miscellany. And when I originally looked at this playlist, Kaveh was not included for some reason. Like, they skipped over him. But I guess time has passed, and now he's included. However, this still begs the question, are there any other characters missing from these? I know I haven't seen, like, Noelle, or Amber, or Lisa. Then again, maybe they do have collected miscellanies that I'm just missing out because they're not in the playlist, or maybe they just don't have videos for them. If there are videos for them, let me know, and I'll make a separate video to catch up on all of those. Anyway, let's continue with Kaveh.
When Dory was planning to build her residence, she at first envisaged a cozy luxury home in a quiet spot far from the city, with ample space to house her countless possessions. But with the aid of renowned architect Kaveh, the palace of Alcazar-Zareh has ended up as an iconic landmark known far and wide. Dory occasionally grumbles about this unexpected twist of fate, but in Kaveh's life, unintended consequences like these are all too typical.
Is that the client? Wait, oh, it's you!
Kaveh is rarely without his assistant, Mirak, a multifunctional tool that runs on ancient technology. As well as assisting him with routine mapping work, Mirak also helps Kaveh deal with all manner of unforeseen incidents. When trying to strike a balance between aesthetics and practicality, budgeting is an essential skill. When Kaveh crafts landscape, building, and courtyard-type furnishings, some materials are refunded, ensuring efficient utilization. Kaveh's normal attack uses Marak to combo up to 4 strikes, dealing physical damage to enemies. His charged attack consumes stamina over time to perform continuous rapid slashes, finishing with an especially powerful slash. When he casts his elemental skill, Kaveh attacks using Marak's mapping ability, performing a radial scan that deals AoE dendro damage and causes all dendro cores in range to burst. After unlocking the talent An Architect's Undertaking, when Kaveh is hit by dendro cores damage, including Burgeon and Hyperbloom damage, he will restore HP based on his elemental mastery. This effect can be triggered once per set time period.
Breaking new ground!
Kaveh's elemental burst unleashes the full power of Marak, which maps out a cubic area, dealing AoE dendro damage to all enemies within it, and causing all dendro cores in range to burst. For a set duration, it also enhances Kaveh's combat capabilities by increasing his resistance to interruption, expanding his normal, charged, and plunging attack range, and converting his attacks into dendro damage that cannot be overridden. Additionally, all dendro cores created by your own party members' bloom reactions will deal additional damage when they burst. These effects will be cleared once Kaveh leaves the field. The mind of an artist is always busily conjuring up strange and wondrous ideas, never stopping even in the heat of battle. After unlocking the talent A Craftsman's Curious Conceptions, during the period of Kaveh's elemental burst, after Kaveh strikes an opponent with a normal, charged, or plunging attack, his elemental mastery will be increased. This effect can be triggered once per set time period and is stackable up to a limit. When the elemental burst duration expires, these effects are cleared. The path of the idealist is rarely a smooth one. Even the kindest of souls must find the strength to confront the obstacles ahead. In battle, Kaveh makes deft use of his elemental skill. He scans for all dendro cores in a certain range, instantly causing them to burst and deal dendro damage to enemies. When energy is full, Kaveh uses Marak at full power, dealing dendro damage to enemies and enhancing his personal combat capabilities for a period of time. Kaveh continues to deal dendro damage with his normal attack and elemental skill, while boosting damage dealt by bursting dendro cores, finally tackling the problems in his life once and for all. Many struggle to understand how Kaveh, despite his academic brilliance, has wound up leading a life fraught with disappointments. The objective truth is that Kaveh is his own worst enemy and brings most of his woes upon himself. And yet, I find myself reluctant to be too critical of him. After all, surely anyone with a heart would be moved after witnessing Kaveh stand up for what he believes in.
Kaveh. Okay, I've said this before about Kaveh. I really like his animations. He seems like another character who is kind of stoic for the most part, similar to Ayato, where he's mostly standing while things are happening around him. But what I really like about his fighting style is that the sword that's moving around is like a compass. And then he also has that other burst that goes out that almost looks like a floor plan or like a rough grid. And it's kind of funny that this ancient technology that's helping him is just a fancy briefcase. Convenient. But yeah, Kaveh's cool. And yeah, Dainsleif over here can relate to him. And that was just Dane's way of being like, yeah, I mean, I realize that I'm my own worst enemy. That he does it to himself by doing what he believes in, which is what Kaveh does. Kaveh suffers for the sake of his art. Perhaps it could be money issues. With Dainsleif, obviously, something a lot more intense than housemaking, but you get the idea.
One courier from Inazuma's Komaniya Express stands head and shoulders above the rest. Instantly recognizable from her twin tails and paw pads, she is well known for her professionalism and excellent customer service. But nothing speaks to her popularity like her loyal customers, who, impressed by her integrity and can-do attitude, ask for her by name whenever they need an express delivery.
Anything you need delivered?
Gold-level courier Kirara has more than earned her reputation. Be it her delivery speed or package security, she provides a first-rate service by every measure. With her dendro vision on hand, Kirara clears all roadblocks to progress and delivers every order safely and swiftly. Even when in human form, Kirara's feline hunting instinct never sleeps. When Kirara is in the party, animals who produce fowl, raw meat, or chilled meat will not be startled as easily when your party members approach them. Kirara's normal attack can combo up to 4 sword strikes, dealing physical damage to enemies. Using her charged attack, Kirara consumes a set amount of stamina to perform 3 frontal slashes with her claws, dealing physical damage. Tapping Kirara's elemental skill sends her pouncing forth like a cat from the underbrush to deliver a tail-flicking flying kick, dealing AoE dendro damage to enemies. At the same time, Kirara gains a shield of safe transport that absorbs dendro damage with increased effectiveness, and she also becomes affected with dendro for a short time. The shield of safe transport's damage absorption scales off of Kirara's max HP, not exceeding a certain percentage of her max HP. Any remaining damage absorption on a shield of safe transport will be transferred to a new shield when created, and the duration will also be reset. Hold her elemental skill, and Kirara psychs herself up for a same-day delivery. She deploys a shield of safe transport identical to the shield produced by tapping the skill, and also enters the urgent Neko parcel state, curling up into a special express delivery box to move and fight at a faster pace. While in this state, Kirara will deal dendro damage to enemies she runs into. This effect can be triggered once per set time period for each enemy. When the duration ends or the skill is used again, Kirara executes a flip claw strike, which deals AoE dendro damage and is more powerful than the attack performed by tapping the skill. The urgent Neko parcel state also lends Kirara an advantage when adventuring in the wild. While in this state, her movement speed, climbing speed, and jumping ability are all increased, though her stamina consumption from climbing also increases. Sprinting or actively canceling climbing will end the state early. The urgent Neko parcel state lasts for a limited duration and enters a cooldown when it ends. The longer that the state was active, the longer the cooldown time will be. After unlocking the talent Bewitching Betwitching Tails, when Kirara enters the urgent Neko parcel state using her elemental skill, each collision with an enemy will grant her a stack of reinforced packaging. This effect can be triggered once per set time period for each enemy, and can be stacked up to a maximum of 3 times. When the urgent Neko parcel state ends, each stack of reinforced packaging will create 1 shield of safe transport for Kirara. The damage absorption of shields created in this way is based on that of her elemental skill's shield. If Kirara is already protected by a shield of safe transport created by her elemental skill, the shield duration will reset, and any remaining damage absorption will carry over.
Service with a smile!
Kirara uses her elemental burst to punish would-be package thieves, attacking with a special delivery package that deals AoE dendro damage. After the special delivery package explodes, it will split into numerous catgrass cardamoms, which explode and deal AoE dendro damage on contact with an enemy, or after a period of time. Just as a cat's eyes stay sharp in the dark, Kirara adjusts her attacks to suit the needs of the battle. After unlocking the talent Pupillary Variance, Kirara's elemental skill and elemental burst damage are increased based on her max HP. In her Nekomata form, Kirara possesses fearsome yokai powers. However, she prefers to use her abilities to protect her customers' parcels from theft or damage. In combat, Kirara's primary means of support is the shield of safe transport she creates with her elemental skill. In a pinch, she can also switch to her urgent Neko parcel state and dart around the battlefield as the situation demands, while keeping her allies safe. When her energy is full, Kirara drops off a special delivery package, which deals AoE dendro damage to enemies before splitting into cat-grass cardamoms, turning package thieves into damaged goods. Being a courier can be very satisfying work. To Kirara, every package safely delivered to a satisfied customer is a huge accomplishment, and a job well done always leaves her in a wonderful mood. Of course, not all packages are fortunate enough to make it into the hands of the customers waiting for them, but I admire Kirara's persistence and patience as she treks far and wide with her unwieldy parcels in hand, determined to see each and every journey through to the end. Perhaps this is the way things should be. After all, given enough time, is there any price too great to pay in order to achieve your goals?
Kirara is another character that I'd like to describe as happy chaos. Similar to Yaoyao, they have a mechanic where they're just running around the enemies dealing damage. And it looks like a lot of fun and a way to switch up the way you may consider playing the game. I also really like how it can be used as an extra mode of transportation, similar to Sayu. And this mode seems to last for quite a while. She's another cute character that switches things up. Now, they said that I think she used a sword, but in her animations, I think I only saw a sword a little bit. It looks like she's mostly attacking with her claws, but maybe it's one of those things where you're technically equipping a sword and you're using the stats from that sword, but the animation just shows her attacking with her hands and feet. I'm not really sure. Either way, still pretty cool. Originally, I failed to see that she was a Dendro character. I thought she was Anemo. For some reason, all characters that when I don't know what their element is, I just assume that they're Anemo, and I don't know why that is. And then as far as Dainsleif goes, at the end here, he brings up the question. He brings up a lot of questions. A lot of, to him, probably rhetorical questions. Is there any price too great to pay in order to achieve your goals? And it makes sense that he would bring that up and talk about that, because he has before. He's talked about self-sacrifice and doing what you need to do in order to get to where you want to be. And it gets me back on my theory of what Dainsleif is, and how I personally think he is a version of the Traveler, and that there are multiple timelines of the Traveler doing a thing. I mean, whenever you watch a special program, what do they refer to as the viewers watching the special program? The people playing the game. They say travelers. I mean, yeah, of course, we are all playing as the Traveler, but some can be Ether, some could be Lumine, you know, and I feel like Dainsleif is just another Traveler out there in this multiverse or whatever, who has gone through his experiences, and he's just trying to send out these messages and then show up to kind of see where your ambitions are, where your head is at. And he's very stubborn and stuck in his own ways, and he's trying to share that information but not give too much away, and it's a whole thing. I mean, come on, he knows the entirety of the story before it's even finished. I don't think anyone can convince me that he doesn't know the ending. He does. Absolutely does. Regardless, he's done things or is doing things and is paying for it. And, you know, checking in with you, are you cool with doing the same thing? Alright, we're in the final stretch now. We're into the Fontaine characters. We're about to get caught up. And like I've said before, once I complete all these, I know more characters are going to be released as time goes on. There will be separate videos for those, just like how I've done so with teasers and demos and so on. So With that said, let's get into this.
Magic is a kind of real illusion, and those few who excel at making illusions that shock and amaze will become renowned among magicians. From the performance posters adorning the opera houses of Fontaine to the hearty recommendations of hotel concierges and conversations with citizens on the streets, it isn't difficult to guess who the title of most popular magician belongs to.
We'll be a traveling magic troupe.
Magic is not simply a stage performance for Lyney, for the tricks of the trade have become a part of his everyday life. If you were to liken the battlefield to a stage, Lyney's bow and arrows would be his props, while the talented magician himself creates surprises for anyone watching the show. Those who are keen observers are more familiar with their own blind spots. When Lyney is in the party, the location of items unique to Fontaine will appear on your minimap, making it easier to gather resources. Lyney's normal attack can combo up to 4 consecutive shots, dealing physical damage. With a charged attack, Lyney executes a more precise aimed shot that deals increased damage. The shot has different effects depending on how long the charging lasts. At charge level 1, Lyney fires off a pyro-infused arrow that deals pyro damage. At charge level 2, Lyney fires off a prop arrow that deals pyro damage. After hitting, a Grinmalkin hat will be summoned. Grinmalkin hats can taunt nearby opponents, causing them to attack the hat. Each opponent can only be taunted periodically. When a Grinmalkin hat is destroyed, or its duration expires, it will fire off a pyrotechnic strike at a nearby opponent, dealing pyro damage. Only one Grinmalkin hat can exist at once. It inherits HP in proportion to Lyney's maximum HP. In addition, if Lyney's HP is higher than a certain threshold when he fires a prop arrow, Lyney will consume a portion of his own HP to obtain 1 prop surplus stack. The number of stacks is limited, and all stacks will be removed once Lyney stays out of combat for too long. Lyney's HP cannot fall below a certain threshold in this way. After unlocking the talent Perilous Performance, if Lyney consumes HP by firing off a prop arrow, the Grinmalkin hat will restore a certain amount of elemental energy after it strikes an enemy, and will gain increased damage based on its attack. Prop arrows periodically call down Spirit Breath Thorns upon the location they hit, dealing Numa-aligned pyro damage. Using his elemental skill, Lyney does a flourish with his hat, unleashing a firework surprise when a Grinmalkin hat created by Lyney is on the field. The fireworks will cause it to explode violently, dealing AoE pyro damage equivalent to a pyrotechnic strike. Damage dealt by the Grinmalkin hat in this way is considered charged attack damage. When Lyney uses his elemental skill, all prop surplus stacks will be cleared, dealing AoE pyro damage to opponents in front of him. Damage will be increased based on the number of stacks cleared, and Lyney's HP will be regenerated based on his max HP.
Let's get this show on the road!
Using his elemental burst, Lyney unleashes his magic, turning into a fast-moving Grinmalkin cat. This is not to be confused with the Grinmalkin hat. They're 2 different props. When the Grinmalkin cat gets close to opponents, it will call down flames upon them, dealing up to 1 instance of pyro damage to each opponent. When the duration ends, Lyney will dismiss the Grinmalkin cat and ignite magnificent fireworks that deal AoE pyro damage, summon a Grinmalkin hat, and gain 1 prop surplus stack. Lyney can also deactivate Grinmalkin cat prematurely. A magnificent performance always leaves the audience yearning for an encore. If the applause is rapturous enough, the magician might even improvise a few new tricks on the spot. After unlocking the talent Conclusive Ovation, Lyney deals increased damage to opponents affected by pyro. In addition, each pyro party member other than Lyney will increase this damage bonus. The damage increase that can be gained in this way has a maximum limit. Only an actor who has mastered their skills and who can instantly adapt is worthy of being a maestro of magic, and Lyney is fully deserving of the title. In battle, prop arrows are Lyney's primary source of damage. By continually firing prop arrows, not only can Lyney summon Grin Malkin hats and fire off pyrotechnic strikes, he can also gain prop surplus stacks. By using his elemental skill to clear stacks at the right time, Lyney can deal even more damage to enemies. When energy is full, Lyney can transform into a Grin Malkin cat, moving agilely about the battlefield, getting close to enemies, and delivering a magnificent final performance under a shower of pyrotechnic magic. No one wishes to be tricked, but people still willingly take their seats to watch a magic show whose purpose is to deliberately deceive. Is it to lose themselves in a splendorous illusion, even for a short while, or is it to see through the illusions and trickery? Either way, we need not pry too deeply. For regardless of how real the magic seems, it is but a performance. Just consider it a rare piece of entertainment in a world of fickle fate. Is that not enough?
Dainsleif throws me off, man. I was expecting him to go into Lyney a little bit, to be honest. But instead, he's just kind of like, forget about it. What the hell's up with that? Just consider it a piece of rare entertainment, and then fickle fate. By saying fickle, he's talking about that it's, it's ever-changing. It's not set in stone. What's strange to me is that I consider Dainsleif to be the person who is very serious and, in some ways, truth-searching. For sure, truth-searching. But then again, he too hides a lot and doesn't talk about what's really going on and is very vague with how he sets things up and has all these hypothetical questions. Would you be ready if I pooped my pants? Like, he's just weird like that. And then we get into Lyney, who is like the character when it comes to illusions. And all my theories have led into like Lyney knowing more than what's going on, and that it's all like a setup, shit is fake, all this stuff. And in my opinion has compared the real life events within Genshin to illusions and magic, and that stuff is actually happening behind the scenes, but don't worry about it. And then we have Dainsleif here, who follows Lyney's footsteps by being like, just enjoy it for what it is. I'm like, really, dude? You're saying that? He's either stupid, on the same side, or whatever's happening here is small potatoes compared to other shit that's going on. So there's a couple ways that can be interpreted, I guess. Then again, to me, it seems that Dane has warned us to not be involved. So maybe he is following Lyney's footsteps in a way of saying, like, just enjoy the show for what you see and don't think about it too much. Just like everything else that's been going on that you're getting way too nosy about, dude. So there's that. Once again, I don't know what Dane is actually like within the game itself and what he tells you, whether or not he wants you to do certain things or join his side or just tells you to stop caring or whatever his motives are. I'm very interested to find out, but this definitely made me go, huh? But yeah, other than that, Lyney seems pretty cool. I like how he can combo his stuff and that there's a flair to his animations. Everything is like putting on a show or some little grand reveal with like the confetti and the cards flying everywhere. The pyrotechnics. Yeah, seems like a good time.
Lynette likes to dub herself the multifunction magic assistant, resulting in a common misconception that she represents a new frontier in Fontaine's technology. But everyone who sets out to prove the theory that she's a humanoid mecha comes to the same conclusion. Perhaps you shouldn't take everything a magician says on stage literally.
Is it time for a magic show?
Although an exceptionally keen perception isn't on the list of required skills for a magic assistant, it is what makes Lynette stand out from the crowd. With the help of her animo vision, she stealthily navigates different locations, gathering intelligence and solving problems from the shadows. I heard that cats often give people the impression of being afraid of water. If that's the case, they should make full use of resources and complete any underwater tasks swiftly and safely. When Lynette is in the party, the locations of nearby revival orbs will be shown on the minimap. Underwater stamina and HP gained from touching the orbs will also be increased. Lynette's normal attack can combo up to 4 strikes, dealing physical damage to enemies. Using her charged attack, Lynette consumes a certain amount of stamina and performs 2 swift slashes to her front, dealing physical damage. By tapping on her elemental skill, Lynette will swiftly use an Enigma Thrust, dealing animo damage. Holding the skill allows her to enter a high-speed pilfering shadow state and apply Shadow Sign to a nearby opponent. Lynette can control her movement direction during this state and can end it prematurely by using this skill again. When this high-speed state ends, Lynette will unleash her Enigma Thrust, dealing animo damage. If there is an opponent with Shadow Sign applied to them nearby, Lynette will flash to them before using Enigma Thrust. A maximum of 1 opponent can have Shadow Sign at any one time. When this opponent gets too far from Lynette, the Shadow Sign will be cancelled. In addition, when the Enigma Thrust hits an opponent, it will restore Lynette's HP based on her max HP, and for some time afterward, she will lose a certain amount of HP per second. At specific intervals, Lynette will unleash a Surging Blade when she uses Enigma Thrust, dealing Usia-aligned animo damage.
Be amazed!
When Lynette casts her Elemental Burst, she raises her mantle high, dealing AoE animo damage, using skillful sleight of hand to make a giant Bogglecat box appear. The Bogglecat box taunts nearby opponents, attracting their attacks, and deals animo damage to nearby opponents at intervals. When the Bogglecat box comes into contact with Hydro, Pyro, Cryo, or Electro, it will gain the corresponding element and additionally fire vivid shots that will deal damage from that element at intervals. Elemental absorption of this kind will only occur once during this ability's duration. After unlocking the talent Props Positively Prepped, after the Bogglecat box summoned by Lynette's Elemental Burst performs Elemental Absorption, damage dealt by her Elemental Burst will increase. This effect will persist until the Bogglecat box's duration ends. On the stage, Lynette is Lyney's magic assistant, but when she's anywhere else, she uses her clever tricks to help other companions as well. After unlocking the talent Sophisticated Synergy, within a certain period after Lynette uses her Elemental Burst, her party member's attack will be increased based on the number of different elemental types in the party. The more elemental types there are, the greater the increase. Ever observant and supremely stealthy, Lynette is quick to adapt to the needs of the mission and the strengths of her teammates. In battle, Lynette uses her elemental skill to swiftly traverse the field, catching her opponents off guard with her Enigma Thrust. When energy is full, Lynette summons a Bogglecat box with a flick of her cloak. This creates ideal conditions for her teammates to work their magic with elemental reactions, leaving her enemies scratching their heads and wondering, how did she do that? It's easy to avoid drawing attention, but it takes extraordinary talent to stay hidden under the spotlight. Quick movements and silent footsteps. Even if you keep your eyes peeled, it may very well be impossible to track the target. Oh, you think that was about Lynette? What if I was talking about a cat? I heard that Lynette is raising kittens at home. Perhaps even at this very moment, from a place you never thought to pay attention to, they're licking their fur and keeping a watchful gaze on your every move.
Lynette is awesome. I love the stealth thing going on, and I think I prefer characters where they work best in parties where you have a mix of other characters with different visions. And one thing I really like about Animo is how they synergize so well with Pyro, with Electro, with Hydro, with Cryo, all that stuff. Really cool. I'm glad that you can just kind of get her as far as I know without doing any pulls. Definitely a character I'm going to want to experiment with because, in my opinion, just looks like a lot of fun to play. Dane also mentioned something pretty interesting, talking about how people assume her to be essentially an android of some kind. I think I remember some people in my comments talking about how she's a robot, but then at the same time, Dane just said, don't believe everything you hear. So I don't know what to think about that. It sounds like that's not correct. Or is Dane just trying to fool me now? The end was interesting though, because, you know, Lynette is a cat girl and he's talking about regular cats, but he's still comparing her to them. We know that Lynette works in the shadows and that she observes and stuff, and although he's just talking about cats supposedly, I do think he's hinting at her own mannerisms as well, and that you don't really know when she could potentially be around watching your every move. We know she's an observer. We know that she gathers information. So yeah, Dainsleif is saying one thing here and saying another thing here. But he is kind of throwing us off a little bit, playing his own little mind games. This could go back to the Lyney theory that I had, where, you know, is he just telling us to not take it too seriously, to not look into who Lynette really is, although she might be watching you anyway. Like, you know, it's kind of weird vibes from him from this one. He's just saying like, ignore that. I don't even look into that. It's fine. But then again, if that is the case, that's really sketchy for Dainsleif to just say like that. Are we getting too close to the truth, Dainsleif? You getting a little nervous, telling us to ignore stuff? I'm on to you, buddy. Can't fool me until you do.
If you need someone to help you with underwater work, you'll surely hear mentions of Freminet. Though he's one of Fontaine's best divers, he rarely shows his face. Those familiar with him would say that's because he spends most of his time beneath the waves. This makes for quite an awkward situation. You see, any diver talented enough to swim down and find him for a job might as well do the job themselves.
At your command.
Though Freminet lacks confidence, he's actually more adept at completing missions than he gives himself credit for. As long as Pear is by his side, Freminet will wield his sword to protect his home, no matter how powerful the enemies may be. Even before gaining his vision, to Freminet, diving had become a part of his everyday life. When Freminet is in the party, he will reduce the consumption rate of party members' aquatic stamina, making it easier to explore underwater. Freminet's normal attack can combo up to 4 strikes, dealing physical damage. His charged attack consumes stamina over time to perform continuous swirling attacks, finishing with an especially powerful slash. Using his elemental skill, Freminet performs an upward thrust that deals cryo damage and enters Pair Timer for a period. While Pair Timer is active, Freminet's normal attacks will cause the timer to increase the pressure level and release waves of frost that deal cryo damage. Damage from these waves will be considered elemental skill damage. In addition, while under the Pair Timer, Freminet's elemental skill will turn into Shattering Pressure. Shattering Pressure will execute different attacks based on Pair Timer's pressure level, and then cancel the timer. At level 0, Shattering Pressure will unleash a vertical cut that deals cryo damage. From levels 1 to 3, Shattering Pressure will unleash a vertical cut alongside Pair to deal cryo and physical damage. The damage dealt will scale based on pressure level. At level 4, Freminet will borrow the power of a fully pressurized pair to deal physical damage. At this time, Freminet's normal attacks will also be replaced by shattering pressure. At specific intervals, after performing the upward thrust, a Spirit Breath Thorn upward thrust will also be created, dealing Numa-aligned cryo damage.
Commencing cleanup!
With his elemental burst, Freminet unleashes a wave of cold that deals AoE cryo damage, resets the cooldown of his elemental skill, and causes him to enter the subnautical hunter mode for a period of time. In this mode, Freminet's interruption resistance will increase, his elemental skill cooldown is decreased, and the damage of its normal attack frost waves is increased. In addition, while Pair Timer is also active, Freminet's normal attacks will give Pair 1 additional pressure stack. These effects will be cancelled when Freminet leaves the field. After unlocking the talent Saturation Deep Dive, if Pair Timer has less than 4 levels of pressure, when Pressurized Flow Shattering Pressure is used, the cooldown of Pressurized Flow will be decreased. Freminet's efficiency at completing missions has gradually increased ever since he incorporated his knowledge of machinery into combat. After unlocking the talent Parallel Condensers and triggering Shatter on an opponent, the damage of Pressurized Flow Shattering Pressure will be increased for a period of time. To Freminet, fighting in battle is not so different from operating Clockwork Mecha. In both cases, knowledge of general principles and communication of orders are crucial to resolving difficult problems. In battle, Freminet can easily adapt his combat style to the needs of the situation. With Pair by his side, Freminet can use his elemental skill to unleash shattering pressure on his opponents, dealing damage based on the pressure level of the Pair Timer. When energy is full, Freminet can enter Subnautical Hunter mode, reducing the cooldown of his elemental skill and increasing the pressure accumulation rate of the Pair Timer. This will boost his damage output and allow him to finish his mission in a reliable manner. As long as you can still think for yourself, you'll realize that obeying orders is no easy task. Freminet likely knows this as well, or he wouldn't have tried to seal away his emotions, performing his tasks like a clockwork mecha and diving into the deep sea to empty his mind. Even so, Freminet is no mindless machine, and the people and things around him will continue to pull him back out of the sea. Perhaps one day, he will finally realize that orders are not delicious dishes presented to him on a silver platter, but rather frozen walls that are obstructing him from completing his final metamorphosis.
So there's one thing I need to correct that I've been kind of complaining about a little bit, and I talked about the pole arms and how there's that lunge attack thing that seems to be repeated. They do the same thing with all the weapons for their charged physical damage. With claymores, you got your whirlwind attack. With normal swords, you got your quick 3 slashes, whatever that may be. I'm not mad at it. I just fail to see that it was all weapons did a similar thing. Now that I see that it's more intentional, I kind of get it. However, it would have been nice if some of those animations were a little bit different. So, I mean, it doesn't just apply to pole arms. Now my complaint applies to all weapons. There's a lot of characters, right? So some shortcuts need to be made. And there has been a lot of variety anyway. Once again, Freminet is no exception to that. I really dig characters that have this kind of super mode that they go into. So when he has his diving helmet on, he's all, charged up and doing his thing, and that's pretty cool. I like that. Here, Dainsleif says something pretty interesting about taking orders. Orders are not delicious dishes presented to him on a silver platter, but rather frozen walls that are obstructing him from completing his final metamorphosis. I believe that's Dainsleif saying that you know, Freminet here has a lot of potential and a lot of strength and can do a lot when he realizes that he has to do things for himself. He's working within the rules of something, and he's comfortable right now. It's what he knows, so he continues to do it, thinking that this is what he's meant to do, that this is safe, this is what he has to do. But really, if he keeps following those orders and he keeps doing those same things, he is frozen in place. He is stuck, he can't make progress, he can't improve as an individual. He describes him being stuck in place as these frozen walls. Now he is a cryo user, and when I think of cryo, I also think of Shesnaya and that whole thing. That's also where the Fatui are from, and I have that theory that the three of them, Freminet, Lynette, and Lyney, are working with the Fatui. So my brain is going along the lines of, you keep following the Fatui and doing what they tell you to do, you're not going to get anywhere, man. You're feeling safe and secure right now because you have this whole thing that is technically protecting you by doing what they say, but you will never be anything more than just a worker for them. If he were to break through these frozen walls, then he can be so much more and reach his final metamorphosis. Adulthood, more power, confidence, all of this stuff. He's being held down by what he's used to. So that's what I gathered from that. So Dainsleif is just saying, if only he realized it, he could be so much better.
In Fontaine, where the world's waters converge, the stage blurs the line between drama and reality. But high above the histrionics stands a solemn figure whose demeanor seems at odds with the spectacle below.
The pleasure is all mine.
Neuvillette is extremely adept at using hydro. Water itself seems to be at his beck and call. Surely this power is the true source of his capacity for impartial judgment. Despite having neither a vision nor any professional training, Neuvillette's diving skills are vastly superior to the ordinary person. If Neuvillette is in the party, underwater sprint speed is increased for your own party members. Neuvillette's normal attack calls forth the waves with his cane, performing up to 3 strikes that deal hydro damage. While charging, Neuvillette's charged attack slowly gathers the power of the source water to form a seal of arbitration. He can move freely and change direction while the seal is formed. If he stops charging before the seal is fully formed, Neuvillette consumes a set amount of stamina to perform a charged attack, shooting a powerful blast of water that deals AoE hydro damage. If the seal is fully formed when charging stops, he performs a charged attack, Equitable Judgment, instead, releasing a surging torrent that continuously deals AoE hydro damage to enemies in a straight line in front of him. Charged attack Equitable Judgment does not consume stamina and lasts for a set period. If his HP is higher than a certain percentage while using it, he continuously consumes HP. After unlocking the talent Heir to the Ancient Sea's Authority, when a party member triggers a Vaporize, Frozen, Electrocharge, Bloom, Hydro Swirl, or a Hydrocrystallize reaction on an enemy, Neuvillette gains the Past Draconic Glories effect for a period of time, increasing the damage dealt by Equitable Judgment. He can have up to 3 stacks of Past Draconic Glories, and stacks created by each kind of elemental reaction exist independently. Neuvillette's elemental skill calls down a raging waterfall that deals AoE hydro damage to enemies in front of him, based on his own max HP. After striking an enemy, the skill generates 3 source water droplets near the enemy. While he is charging his charged attack, he absorbs source water droplets within a certain radius. Each source water droplet absorbed restores HP and reduces the time required for the seal to fully form. At certain intervals, after the waterfall summoned by his elemental skill has descended, a spirit breath thorn appears that pierces enemies, dealing Numa-aligned hydro damage.
Be sanctified.
Using his elemental burst, Neuvillette unleashes rupturing waves that deal AoE hydro damage based on his own max HP. After a short interval, 2 waterfalls descend that deal hydro damage in a smaller area and create several source water droplets within a given radius. Life is governed by its own natural law, and none who defy it will escape arbitration. After unlocking the talent Discipline of the Supreme Arbitration, Neuvillette receives a hydro damage bonus based on the amount of his current HP that exceeds a certain percentage. The size of the damage bonus gained in this way has a limit. As the Udex, Neuvillette's conduct is just and fair as the water itself. The innocent need not fear, but the guilty will be tried for their transgressions. In combat, fully charged attacks using Seals of Arbitration are Neuvillette's primary mode of attack. Source water droplets generated by his elemental skill allow Neuvillette to quickly charge his Charged Attack Equitable Judgment and deal hydro damage to the enemies ahead. When energy is full, Neuvillette calls down waterfalls, creating even more source water droplets. With the cooperation of his companions, the ensuing torrential onslaught of the tides shall ensure triumph. From Neuvillette's position, every conflict in Teyvat must seem like a comedy acted upon a stage. Fighting for territory that doesn't belong to them, singing the praises of overlords who imprison them, and committing sins that will long outlive them. Still, he does not seem to be an unfeeling spectator at all. In fact, he even tries to understand the causes behind this state of affairs. I rarely see such people, but lest you condemn me as ignorant or a loner for making such a statement, I should remind you that there is only one Udex of Fontaine in this world.
So real quick, talking about Neuvillette here, because I want to get into what Dainsleif has been saying before I forget. Yeah, I like Neuvillette's playstyle. I wasn't sure, I asked a question in a previous video if he was going to appear to be too stoic, not be moving around too much, just doing his blasty blast and then that's it. And it's true, he does, but it looks fun. And there is a strat to it. It's not like you can just pull it off. I mean, I guess you could, but there's the water droplets that you form, and that helps you like do the blast more often. Looks pretty cool. Quite mysterious still. His constellation is a bunch of question marks, and he doesn't have a vision, and I have a theory about that. I believe that he is an ancient being of sorts. I mean, even his, what was it? It was one of his moves or something about that, like heir of hydro ancestry, something like that, like or whatever. Like, I don't know. This guy we're talking about, he's been around for a long time. He doesn't need a vision. This guy's probably a dragon or something. I mean, just based off of how he looks. Maybe I'll talk about that in another video. But I really kind of want to get into what Dainsleif said here. And man, I feel like if I were to meet Dainsleif, I would fight with this dude. I'd get into so many debates with him. I don't know. Something, like he kind of grinds my gears here a little bit. So first he says, with every conflict in Teyvat, they must seem like a comedy upon a stage. Compared to what he has seen and what he knows, I mean, you know, this bickering amongst mortals or whatever, they seem trivial to him. He's been around for a long time. He's seen it all, and he's seen a lot worse, probably, right? No denying that. So yes, it can be seen as humorous as to like, why concern yourself with all these small little things? However, he still does his job, and he does it well. And then Dainsleif says that he doesn't think he's an unfeeling spectator at all. And sure, I've said before, way back, that maybe Neuvillette does not feel like we do, that he does not know how to comprehend emotions, but I've also corrected myself and said that he does understand to an extent, but probably differently than what we do, or not in the same way. Going back to hear how all these things that people get worked up about, he can understand what kind of emotions they are, but maybe he doesn't understand like how it affects these people in the ways it does. He has also straight up said that he doesn't quite understand his own emotions sometimes, probably with how to express himself. So he still feels them. No one's saying he's unfeeling, but having trouble understanding emotions is different from being able to not feel them at all. He even tries to understand the causes behind this state of affairs. Okay. He's saying, in fact, carrying on the whole, like, yeah, he's not unfeeling. In fact, he tries to understand. Sure, you can argue that it's empathy, or we can go based off of what Neuvillette has said various times, saying that he will use the past to judge the future. He wants to know where people are coming from, why choices were made that led up to decisions that had happened, and why we're all here in this room talking about it. This is not a good backup for Dainsleif to say. In my opinion, this is just more logic brain, which we know Neuvillette has. He has to. In my opinion, this is more logic brain than anything. A logical person would want to do the same thing. A person in an important position, such as Neuvillette, would want to use this kind of method to decide what a verdict is. So I'm coming from the standpoint that, of course, Neuvillette feels, but of course, he also uses his brain to do his job more so than his emotions. Dainsleif here is not saying that. He's like, no, he's very feeling. He's all emotion. In fact, he feels this way. And it's like, no, that's not what that is. You're just wrong, Dainsleif. You're actually just wrong. And then this is what gets me. Dainsleif trying to back up his own statement with like a drop the mic thing. Like, gotcha. You can't prove me wrong, bitch. I'm gonna do it right now. Watch me. But lest you condemn me as ignorant or a loner for making such a statement, I should remind you that there is only one Iudex of Fontaine in this world. Who cares? That means nothing. He's a Iudex because of what he is and his power and influence, and he's been a part of Fontaine for such a long time that why bother getting other people involved? I don't know much, but Fontaine apparently has this very old law system with how things work that's been around for a very long time, and if this guy's been around for as long as he has, probably involved with this from the beginning, why go somewhere else or introduce this new thing that's going to mess it up when it's been a certain way for so long? People don't care about that kind of thing. They trust or trusted him. He's in with the Archon, he's been around for a long time, and has that knowledge and experience. Of course, in the story, I'm sure things have happened where they're not in Neuvillette's favor, and that has caused some hiccups to occur. But before that, why get other people involved when they already had the best person for the job already doing the thing that they need done? So I'm not here to call Dainsleif ignorant or a loner, but the statements that he made can either easily be disproven or, in fact, don't matter in the grand scheme of things. It's kind of like having that debate or argument with someone and you're like on topic doing it, and then all of a sudden they go left field and they say something like, yeah, well, my dad could beat up your dad, and you're like, dude, what is that? What? We were talking about grapes. What are you on about? I just felt like he was being a little snarky here, and it just kind of backfired and failed, and that made me go like, ugh, why? What's got you upset, Dainsleif? What's got you a little perturbed, buddy? But you know what? I could be wrong as well, because I haven't played this, so, you know, maybe what he's saying does make sense, and it does connect to things. But from what I've seen, it doesn't. So yeah, moving on.
The fortress of Meropide is where exiles gather. Sitting on the seabed far beyond the reach of the court of Fontaine, the name alone evokes danger and teeming, breeding chaos. But this fortress, built of bronze and iron, is a bastion of order. One can't help but wonder, who is in charge here? If you have a chance to meet the administrator, You really should go and see for yourself.
You got a side job for me? Sure thing.
No matter how talented a manager you are, it's difficult to convince people in the Fortress of Meropide without the ability to enforce the rules. The intelligent respect the rules, and those who have faced Wriothesley's cryo-gauntlets naturally come to regret their previous ignorance. So as to be ready for anything, Wriothesley makes the most out of any opportunity to prepare. When Wriothesley crafts weapon ascension materials, he has a chance to receive double the product, boosting the party's adventure readiness. Wriothesley's normal attacks condense frost onto his gauntlets, and he strikes rapidly with his repelling fists, dealing cryo damage with a combo of up to 5 swift attacks. Also, for a short time after Wriothesley uses his elemental skill, or sprints, the counter on his normal attack combo will not reset. When using a charged attack, Wriothesley consumes a certain amount of stamina and executes a leaping strike with his vaulting fist, dealing AoE cryo damage. When Wriothesley uses his elemental skill, he quickly adjusts his breathing, rhythm, and pace. Sprinting forward a short distance, he enters the chilling penalty state, increasing his resistance to interruption in order to deliver even more devastating attacks. While in the chilling penalty state, repelling fist is enhanced. Each strike does more damage, but if his HP is above a certain threshold, he loses a small amount of health with each hit in exchange for this power. This effect disappears when Wriothesley leaves the field. After unlocking the talent, there shall be a plea for justice. When Wriothesley's HP is below a certain threshold, he gains Gracious Rebuke, and his next normal attack is enhanced, becoming Rebuke Vaulting Fist. Rebuke Vaulting Fist does not consume stamina, and its damage is increased. After striking a target, Wriothesley regains a portion of his max HP. The Gracious Rebuke effect can only be triggered once in a set period of time.
Have a safe trip!
With his elemental burst, Wriothesley activates his gauntlets, unleashing a ferocious, frosty straight strike, using Icicle Impact on the area in front of him to deal multiple instances of AoE cryo damage. After Icicle Impact ends, a surging blade falls on the opponent's position, dealing Usia-aligned cryo damage. Behind every crime lies an action, and those actions have consequences. After unlocking the talent, there shall be a reckoning for sin, when Wriothesley's HP increases or decreases. If he is in the chilling penalty state, after using his elemental skill, chilling penalty will gain a stack of Prosecution Edict, increasing his attack. This effect can stack up to a certain limit. It's a good idea to avoid unnecessary battles, but for Wriothesley, turning the tables on someone and throwing down can be quite the cool and refreshing experience. In battle, Wriothesley quickly primes himself for the fight by using his elemental skill, before unleashing his repelling fist to attack. The HP lost at this time is exactly what he needs to enhance his charged attacks. In harmony with his own battle rhythm, Wriothesley can unleash an even more powerful Rebuke Vaulting Fist, dealing a powerful blow to enemies while regaining composure. When his energy is full, Wriothesley can punch forward with Condensed Frost, dealing multiple instances of AoE cryo damage to punish mischief makers and rabble-rousers. Human lives are short, and their memories cannot be passed on. The origins of the Fortress of Meropide have long become shrouded in the mists of the past, and difficult to verify. But as the prophesized catastrophe looms ever closer, Wriothesley pieced together the lost shards of history and revealed once more the silent secrets of the underwater fortress. The condemned willingly serve the gods out of their own sense of guilt, but have they ever considered that the gods may be unable to bring them the consolation they long for?
Wriothesley's a boss, and by far one of the most unique, interesting characters gameplay-wise. I mean, honestly, I thought there were a few other brawlers, or characters I would consider brawlers, within, you know, the roster of Genshin characters. There's Heizo, there's Dehya, there's even a bit of Sino in there, you know, maybe even Kirara, And then there we have Wriothesley, maybe a couple others that I kind of have forgotten. But the majority of those kind of either use a weapon or they enter some kind of mode to do their brawling thing, which I was unaware of when I first started these videos. So it looks like the only true brawlers of any kind are really Hazo and Wriothesley here. Hazo did a lot with his feet, and Wriothesley here is doing stuff with his hands. And that's awesome that they're kind of switching things up a bit to have this kind of character, and I hope we see more of it, because I think the game is going to need it, and I think they know. It's super cool. I do like how they keep introducing these other gameplay styles. It's more innovative that way, and it's really cool. He looks like a lot of fun. Even there's like subtle animations when he's doing his punching. Like you can actually see him like juke and like bob his head a little bit as he's like getting ready to throw the next fist. And it's all happening really quick, but they have different kinds of punches in there as well. Even like the uppercuts in there. So I feel like you can be dashing around doing these punches enough where it doesn't feel too repetitive. I mean, really, really cool. So awesome character. We already knew that. We already knew Wriothesley was an awesome character, and I'm really glad that he plays as differently as I thought he was going to. Really cool. Bonus for being cryo as well. On to Dainsleif. He didn't really say too much of anything that was new here. He kind of went back to his whole like, can we trust the gods? That was essentially what that was. So yeah, that's all I really got to say about that. I am very interested in Meropide, though. I'm looking forward to eventually working my way to that point into the game to see what that's all about. You know, place for exiles. It acts as like a prison. I guess you can kind of roam around in it. I know that they have their own currency inside. It's just a whole nother area to explore. So pretty pumped for it. I have finally caught up with all of the collected Miscellany that there currently are at the time of this recording. This was a lot of fun. It's been a really long project to get involved with. I could have started it back when there weren't so many, but I dragged my feet and was busy with a bunch of other stuff, so I couldn't get to them till now. But all in all, this made me really excited for the gameplay of Genshin Impact when I dive into it. And as far as the narration goes, very, very interesting. I was hoping to hear a little more of Alice. I think we only heard her 2 or 3 times at most, but it would have been nice if we heard her for Albedo, if we heard her for Klee, and stuff like that. That would have been cool. Dainsleif said a lot. Of course, in my opinion, I feel like he kind of repeated the same message a bit. He also kind of brought all these theoretical questions as if, you know, when push comes to shove, can the character handle it? So that was interesting to kind of add his 2 cents here to say these things. Obviously, he is biased with whatever he is doing, his train of thought. He's a stubborn individual, so there were some things he said that made me go, huh? What? Dude, what are you talking about? And maybe I'm just doing that because of my lack of experience playing the game and its history. At the same time, he seems up to his stuff. Whatever he's got going on, he's deep in it, and he's set to his ways. I know maybe I said some things about some characters that you don't necessarily agree with. Perhaps I asked some ignorant questions just because of my lack of knowledge on the subject. And maybe I said some things that were a little harsh towards Alice or Dainsleif. The more critique I give something, there tends to be an underlying interest in that, so keep that in mind. Both Alice and Dainsleif are super interesting, and I'm excited to find out what I can about them through the story or other means within the game. And depending on what they say and how it's said, I may either shake their hand or maybe give someone a punch square between the eyes. Doubt I'm allowed to do that. But I have a decent enough imagination, so I think I'm good. Thank you once again for joining me on this journey of mine. This was a huge project to do, a lot of time to record, a lot of time to edit. So if you're not subscribed to the channel, please do so to support me, because it was a lot, man. And I could really use the help. And of course, if you managed to get to this point, then please in the comment section down below, if you want, leave the word collection, and that way I will know that you are indeed a real one. Thank you so much for joining me, and until next time, shine on, you crazy diamonds. Later.